Oh my gosh, I have got my notes for A3.
My birthday's in 2 weeks.
I can do that. Will you be 18?
No.
What's your birthday?
Holly, what's your birthday? 14.
Well, let's sit down for the minutes.
Really?
November 10th is my sister.
Carl? You know Nicole Richards? Hers is 17.
November 17th?
Yeah, Nicole.
I know somebody y'all used to be best friends.
Yeah.
I know somebody's birthday
Richard said his sister.
My dad's Tuesday. Wait, the girl with one arm? The girl with one arm?
Yeah, which one? I don't know. Their Melissa's birthday.
Do you know the girl with one arm?
Yeah, she's really nice.
I love her.
Yeah, she's a
What's her name?
Haley.
Oh, yeah.
And the other one's Olivia.
I don't know Alexis, but I know Haley and
Connor had an
her
80
best friend is Olivia.
Big girl?
Huh?
Is Olivia the big one?
No.
She's not big. She's small.
She's shorter than me. There's a
That's
girl
ugly.
that's shorter than me.
Oh, she is.
Well, oh wait, you're probably talking about Camden. Maybe. I don't know, but one of them
We can
is
start writing all this
one
stuff
time
down.
at the you don't have together. I got the number.
Alexis works in
So we have,
So,
what is all this stuff, Sam?
Oh,
Oh,
she's shorter than yeah, she's shorter than you.
these like some of the perfect squares and all that stuff.
He's small too. I mean, she's not like, but, she's about 9 years.
Okay, I've got 5 functions written on both boards. We're going to do 2 different things with today's lesson. So we're going to tackle those 5 functions that I have written on both boards first, and then the last thing we're going to end with is deciding whether or not functions are called evens or odds. Alright, so with that first function right here, f of x, this is the one you need to be writing, this is what we're going to look at. F of x equals x minus 2 squared times x plus 1. Write that one down, and we're going to go to town with that one. Stuff that we're going to be concerned with today are local minimums, local maximums, turning points. Okay? So those are some things we're going to be talking about. Now I can tell you already that the number 1 that we're looking at here is going to have 2 turning points. Okay, this function is going to have 2 turning points. That means that the graph is going to make a turn 2 different times. Here's how I know that. This x is squared, right? And if I multiply it times that x, that's going to be cubed, correct? To find the number of turning points, it's your degree, which we just said will be cubed, minus 1. It's always n minus 1, your degree minus 1. So this one's going to turn 2 times. So I know already it's going to have 2 turning points. All right, hit y equals that very top row. That very top row right underneath your screen. We've talked about it before. This is your graphing screen. These are your graphing buttons. All these right here are underneath. So hit y equals, and then we just want to type that function in like it reads. I got...
Then you press graph.
Okay, get it typed in there. Very good. Go ahead and hit graph once you get ready. Now, one thing, if your screen doesn't look like mine, there's different zooms and stuff. These things go to different places. So to get it back to what's considered the normal screen, the home screen, which is where mine is, it's zoom standard. So on that top row of buttons, if your screen's ever whopper-jawed, you can hit zoom and 6, and that'll take it back to your normal screen if you ever need to. Alright, so I told you it had 2 turning points, was I right? See, it turns right here and right here, right? It was going uphill, then it changed directions and came downhill, then it changed directions and went uphill. So it's got 2 turning points. I told you another thing we were going to talk about was local minimums and maximums. This thing does not have a definite minimum because it's going to keep going down forever, right? It doesn't have a definite maximum because it's going to keep going up forever. But it does have an area where it has a local minimum. That's a maximum because that's a mountain, right? A local maximum and a local minimum. Okay, so there's an area where it hits the top of a mountain, and then there's an area where it goes down in the valley. Okay, we got a pretty good estimate of where that maximum is. If I went over 0 and up to about 1, 2, 3, 4, looks like that might be where the maximum is. My minimum might be at about 3, 2 or 3, somewhere in there. Okay, that's a pretty good estimate. Our calculators can calculate that for us. Look on the graphing buttons and see the one right next. I can't tell what it says up there. The one on trace, right above trace, it says calc, right? So I'm going to hit second calc. All right, which one do you want to find first? The minimum? So let's go down to number 3. Hit enter. All right, now, it says left bound. That means left boundary. What we have to do to tell our calculator where this minimum is, my minimum's the lower one, it's the valley, it's right here. I have to surround it. So I got to move my cursor down to just above where it would be and set my left boundary. Now I'm going to go through this with you. Then I got to move, then it's going to ask for the right boundary. So I'll move it just to the right side of the minimum and set my right boundary, okay? Alright, so left boundary. See where my cursor is flashing there? I'm going to hit my arrow key. I want it to be just to the left of that minimum, so right in that area. Doesn't have to be exact, but see how that's just to the left of the minimum? And I'm going to hit enter. Now see, it popped up and said, where's your right boundary? So I got to move it over to the right side of that minimum. Hit enter. Now it's saying, are you sure? Are you ready to guess? Are you sure? So hit enter. Look at there. It says that at x equals 2. Now what the heck is this? Okay. I got 7.128. Remember, E is the same as this is scientific notation, times 10 to the negative 15. I put my dry erase marker up. If I had, that's what it says up there. Yours should say something similar. What does yours say?
Same thing.
Okay.
No, ours is negative 12.
Okay, so close there. Where did I put that stinking dry erase marker?
In your book.
Thank you. If I had negative 12 or negative 15, either one, if I had...
Wait, actually our numbers are way off.
That's okay. And I'll show you why.
Or mine is.
That's okay, I'll show you why. If I had something like this, okay, this means I'm moving my decimal point 15 times to the left, doesn't it? So that means I got point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 7128. What is that? What am I basically sitting on if this is my number? What's the closest number this is? 0. Right? That's so close to 0, I'm not going to be able to tell. So this minimum happened at x is 2 and y is 0. Okay, so anytime you get some crazy scientific notation like that, it's as close to 0 as it can be. Okay?
That looks far away.
My thing says y equals 2.831 times 10 to the negative 12.
Same thing. So we would have to move our decimal point 12 times to the left. So that means we would have 11 zeros.
Huh. That's so ridiculous.
Which is pretty much 0. Did you have x equals 2 though, Chloe?
Yeah, it says like 2.0 repeated.
Yeah.
1.
Alright, so that was the minimum. We've got a local maximum up there where it hits the mountaintop. So let's find the maximum. So we're going to hit second calc. I'm going to do number 4 and find the maximum. So I got to go to the left boundary, so I got to move it over to the left side of that mountaintop. Somewhere right around in there. Hit enter. Move it over to the right side of the mountaintop, somewhere right around in there. Hit enter. Shh. Say, yep, I'm ready. So at about 0, 4. Can you read that? No, that's what that's talking about. At about 0, 4 is where that mountaintop would be.
Oh my gosh, what are you doing?
I don't even know what it is.
What in the world is wrong? Something's wrong with my
Mine
calculator.
says yes.
Then hit enter.
Now it says error bound. Quit.
And it's not a put your
Maximum 0, y is 0.
the X is 0.
It says, wait, what? No, it says yes.
Yeah.
No way.
Nope. Did you hit minimum or maximum? Well, we're doing the maximum now.
Oh yeah.
Wait, so after you add the minimum
Count. We're doing number 4. Move it to the left side of that mountaintop a little bit more. I don't like to get real close. One more time. Hit enter. And move it to the right side.
Mine don't work.
Hit enter.
What's wrong with it?
It's
Oh,
not.
mine said error
Bring it
bound
back.
too.
Let me see.
I don't get that.
You go, you get right there and press enter, right?
It's all off.
No, it's the right bound. You gotta go to the
Okay.
left side of it.
Graph right, Devin?
Yes.
Put it over here.
Yeah, no,
And
just
second.
now go to the right side, same
Yeah.
place.
Yeah, number, yeah.
Right there.
Go to the left side of the mountain.
Oh, that's what I did wrong. I got it now, okay.
Now, all of the stuff with trial and error on synthetic division we've been doing to find zeros, did you notice when we were in the calc menu, there's a zero calculator in there too?
Yes.
So you can look at this,
Oh my god.
and you
that is wrong.
you ought to be able to tell this has 2 zeros.
I actually got the y right, but the x is 9.5.
But it's 9.5 times 10 to the
Negative 7, okay.
You should see that we have 2 zeros. Remember, zeros are where we cross the x-axis. 1, 2, right? So I can figure out those zeros now without having to do the synthetic division. I'm going to hit second, calc. Look at number 2, 0. I want to find where that 0 is. Same steps. I got to surround it. Left bound means I'm going to go right below it. Hit enter. Right bound, I'm going to go right above it. Hit enter. So it's got a 0 at -1. See, it says -1 down there on my screen. Okay?
Go over just about.
We already know what that other one is, but I'm going to do it again anyway. I'm going to hit second calc. I'm going to find the 0. Left bound. Right there. Right bound. Right there. Alright, when that, because that happens to y'all sometimes too. When that, whoops, when I graphed up. When that happened, it told me an error on that right bound one. One reason is because it doesn't cross all the way, it just touches it and turns. So now I'm going to try the same thing again, but I'm going to flip-flop it and put my left bound there first. Okay, then I'm going to come over here and put my right bound. Now I'm going to try it. Nope, doesn't like it. Okay.
That means 0, right?
Let's look at our. Well, it's got it there at 2, 0. I don't know.
Put it right on the line, man. Who knows?
That's
spelled that.
strange. All right.
You could run a box of only one.
I want you. Listen. You're gonna do this on your notes. I want you on the next 4. Okay, the next 4. F of X. See there, I've got number 2, 3, and then over on the other dry erase 4. I want you to tell me what their local mins and maxes are. Okay, so I want you can name this one number 1, a min and a max. Number 2, I want you to do those 4 there. See if you can find local mins and maxes. Try it. If you don't practice now, you won't ever do it. Try it.
What?
I would clear out the first one there. I'd clear them out. Don't have more than one in there. It gets confusing.
Booyah, I got that.
Y'all got something looks like mine yet?
Yeah.
Okay, local maximum should be obvious. You should be able to see that. You might not be able to see your local minimum though. What can we do to get to see a local minimum on this?
Do the second trace.
Does my screen move up when I do that? I don't think it does. I need to adjust my window or zoom out, don't I, to get to see more of the graph? You know how to do that?
Well, I'm trying, but it's not working.
Well, for second.
I got for the max.
Keep pressing like zoom up.
Well, I ain't got the max. What'd you get for the max?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't really like that one, Molly, what you were saying. Let me zoom 6 and...
That was way too much.
Yep.
How do you?
Hang on. Where'd you go?
I'm
What'd
gonna
you do
try
right here?
this.
You got -4.
Yeah.
That goes. I changed to get a better picture of my min and max. I hit window. And then I changed my Y minimum from -10 to -20. I needed it to go down lower.
Wait,
Y min.
how did you just pick a negative?
Yeah, because I knew that was lower than -10.
Then come over.
Uh-huh. Then you hit graph and it'll go back to your graph.
Try to get the max. Go to the left. Go right here.
Are you serious right now? I did not want that to happen.
Oh, what you got? You got
I don't think it's close to -4. Let me see figures again.
Hey, get the minimum. What you max go? Get some decimals like these. 0.5362. And then you got
That time you did it backwards. You had the left on the right and the right on the left. Graph.
Minimum x equals
So do I just write
one
this?
repeated y equals negative.
Should graph
X equals 0.5. Where'd you get your X?
So like a half and -1.7.
That good up there. And then how did you get the minimum?
Same thing. Oh, you gotta zoom out. So hit window, go down to your Y min and change that to -20. So it shows more. Go to window, the very top. Go down to your Y min and change it to -20. And then hit graph. Now do the same thing in the minimum.
X equals 5, or x equals 0.5. And then
Yeah,
y
you got to round a little on that one. They didn't come out pretty whole numbers.
Huh? What is 0.5 and negative?
Yeah. First one. Wait.
Well, negative 1.7.
for your minimum if you get decimal.
Mine's not even doing it. Don't you guys enter and do it?
Yeah.
Mine is not even this.
Oh my gosh, I can't.
You get
I mean, this is
2.8.
I like
Yep.
this one with the funny minimum and the
On your
maximum.
Y, you get negative 13.3.
F of X.
Y minimum or Y
I
max?
like having
Alright,
Well, you tell me. Do you need to see up higher where a max is, or do you need to see down lower where a min is?
you gotta do one of those.
There you go. See, you got it.
Oh my gosh, I
Press drive.
finally got that huge long whatever that is out of my
You don't,
eye.
do
Look
you?
at this. Look right, you gotta look at this.
That's in your eye.
That huge thing was in my eye. No. It's so tiny.
Booyah!
Oh, it's because it's two eyelashes connected together. It's right here.
If it's not, it'll tell you an error. You can run in here. Begin for guess. So at about 2.7 and negative 13.3.
Did you get a decimal?
I hadn't done it
I
yet.
couldn't see that
Yeah.
board over there. Yeah.
No, you didn't.
I'm in the corner.
Wait.
it. That's right. I did. I'll tell you.
What'd you get?
No, this is
Yeah, that's
Huh?
Yeah, I feel love for
I had negative 4 as my maximum.
Look at that.
Well, that's wrong. I can tell you that right now.
What do you want?
Negative 4.
You got toast or something. How do you get that in?
You get a second. Trace.
Huh?
You jump on the min and the max.
Here from the middle.
Oh, okay. So then
Minimum, I got 2.8, negative 8. What you look?
This is what you left down.
Did you get anything
No,
close to
no, I
that?
got, no.
What'd you
I
get?
got 0.2.
In the middle one, I got 0.64
my maximum
and 199.
Well, my parents are tricky.
Wow.
I don't know then.
Y'all both check them again.
Hey,
sounds
I'm sorry.
about right.
I got 0.3 for my maximum.
No, it's fine.
Well, it should be an X and a Y.
Oh no, negative
Did
1.
you do it backwards?
Mine's wrong.
My calculator for your
He did
maximum.
it wrong.
Yeah, mine is
Are
wrong.
you serious right now?
For 4.060,
That could be right.
When I clicked it first, I didn't,
Your
because I
brother-
forgot to put the
had-
second calc, so I was just
Yeah.
checking my maximum.
I got from max x equals negative 0.12 and y equals 4.
That could be right. I like that.
Hey, can you tell me if this is right? No, because you probably looked at just the minimum.
You're right.
Is that right? The goal?
For which one? This one that, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
The second.
That's my school. I go do like every page.
No, that's the third one, my bad. Actually, I'm on the third one. This is the x3 minus 4x squared minus x plus
And
1.
then y is negative 2 point.
So you're saying that is
My left down on my right side and my right
down there.
Okay, minimum is x. Sorry,
Oh, is that even possible? Put your left hand on the right side.
Most of the time it'll tell you an error if you screw it up.
Oh,
did.
okay.
And I was like, are you serious right now?
I didn't know if that was possible, like, would it still?
Alright, what? Remember, hey, y'all focus real quick. I know calculators are aggravating for us. Remember what you're finding on this. Okay, so this one did, I've got this is the x minus 4 times 2x squared, this one that I have on my graph here. So when I'm finding that mountaintop, it gave me those ugly decimals. I got to go back and look at my graph and just see if it makes sense. I mean, this ought to be barely past 1 for my x, and somewhere between negative 1 and negative 2 for my y. So I should do a mental double check of myself on those. If I came up and said that's 5/10, no, it's not. 5/10 would be up here, right? I mean, I got to use some common sense. So this minimum down here, I can say that's got to be around 3 or 4, my x, and it's down like negative 12-ish, right? So I know I need to be somewhere in that area. If you're in a whole different ballpark, you've messed up, right? Did you get it ever, Molly?
I don't know.
You don't know. What do you not know?
I don't know if the answer's right.
Well, that's what I was just explaining to you on how to check. Look at your
I'm
picture.
sorry, I was trying to work with it.
Okay, so that's like around 0, negative 5-ish. So what'd you get for your min?
2.2.
Well, it's got to be an ordered pair. It's got to be like that.
Oh.
So on the max, that would be 3.4 comma negative 14.4. You got it right on both. So that's what you didn't do. That's okay.
Is that the minus 51?
Ah, I'm gonna move to the even odds. I know we didn't do all 4 of them, and that's okay. But I want us to have time to talk about if functions are even or odds. So we're going there.
1.9.
I hope with that. I mean, I don't know if they need to round it to 2 or not.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. But screw it.
Screwed.
Which one are you doing?
We're going to talk about if functions are even or odds. Something new.
Oh, so we're done with this?
Okay.
Dang.
I gotta go to mom.
Will you tell me if this is right?
Well, you do a common sense check. Look at your graph and see if it makes sense where the min and the max are.
And I was like,
Okay, that ought to be like over to a positive
I'm not
2
ready
or
to be
3,
wrong.
way down there to negative 3. Yeah, that makes sense. Check it out. Check it out. All right. Talking about if functions are even or odd, we're talking about an entire function, not just the degree. We've already discussed degrees, evens, or odds based on what the highest power is, but now we're talking about an entire function. If an entire function is even, it will be symmetric on the y-axis. Okay, it could flip on the y-axis. That would be an even function. If an entire function is odd, it will be symmetric on the origin. Okay, that means we could rotate it on the origin. I missed the origin there, but you could rotate that around the origin. That's an odd. So y-axis origin is what we're dealing with. Now, there's a check for these to test if it's an even function. When we plug a negative x in, it has to equal what we started with. If we're testing for an odd function, when we plug a negative x in, it has to turn everything negative. Okay, so write that down and we'll figure out what I'm actually talking about and do a couple.
Oh, yeah.
Where's Todd at? Trevor, do you know?
What?
Where's Lightning at?
What at home? I don't know. Let me pull my landing tractor up. He's at home, man. Riley at home and fucking just ride this morning. It's alright.
Alright, this says f of x equals x cubed minus 7x. Our directions say determine whether the function is even, odd, or neither. Okay, obviously it's got an odd degree. We're not talking about degree, we're talking about entire function. So determine whether it's even, odd, or neither. So our test said we plug a negative in for the x's. Okay, so I'm going to say f of negative x is negative x cubed minus 7 times negative x. I just switched the x's to negatives. Okay, now we did this a little bit yesterday. Now we need to simplify this stuff. When I cube a negative, does it stay negative or turn positive? It stays negative. What about here? What's a negative times a negative? Positive. Okay, is this the same as that?
No.
7 here.
Because you got a plus
Okay.
7 there.
Right, I got a negative there and a positive there and a negative and a positive, so they're not the same, right? So it's not even. Okay? So now I got to see if it's odd. If it's odd, this is supposed to equal the opposite of that. Are these opposites?
Yep.
Positive, negative, opposite. Negative, positive, opposite. So this is an odd function. Pretty easy to check on that, but if you've never been told how to, you wouldn't know what to do. Okay, let's try a couple more of those. Got it? Alright. This one says g of x is equal to x to the fourth plus x squared minus 1. Directions say tell whether the function is even, odd, or neither. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to replace all of the x's with negative x's. Alright, so when I raise a negative to an even power, does it stay negative or go back to positive?
Even or positive.
Goes back to positive. So this negative x to the fourth is actually positive x to the fourth, right?
And then it's plus x squared.
Negative x squared, when you square a negative, is a positive x squared minus 1. So I'm comparing this
Same thing, so it's even.
to my original. Is Mr. Trevor correct? Yes, they're the same. So that is an even function.
Ain't too hard.
Nope, it's not at all. One more. Can we do one more?
Do one that's not fun.
Okay, neither.
Oh, what's it? You just take it back out.
Is that on?
Okay.
You probably went over the box and did right now.
Oh my gosh, what is on the list? You're all gonna be like, what's Lucky Charms?
Got Carolyn?
Bag.
Alright. This one I got h of x equals x cubed plus 2. X cubed plus 2. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is replace x with a negative x. Alright, when we cube a negative, does it stay negative or go to positive?
Negative.
It stays negative. So we're comparing that to that. Are they the same?
No.
No.
Not the same, so it's not even. Are they opposites?
No.
No. The x's are positive, negative, that's opposite, but the whole thing's not because the 2's are not opposites.
Wait, I
So
thought when you did a negative x times. Wait, what? I thought that was supposed to be a positive. But
It's neither.
a negative times a negative times a negative stays negative.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So it's not the same, they're not opposites, so this one is neither odd or even. So that just means it's not going to have symmetry on the y-axis or the origin. Might not have any symmetry at all. Some things don't.
Yes.
Symmetrical.
Done.
Alright, kind of a weird lesson because we did more on the calculator than we normally did, but we graphed yesterday without the calculator. So, you know, that bothers you that you don't like using the calculator, you can still graph without it. You can go back and make that input-output table like we did yesterday and do it by hand. It's fine. I probably would. I'm not a big graphic calculator fan. We got one more lesson in this unit. We'll do that tomorrow, and Wednesday next week's when we're going to take tests.
So Friday, we'll start to go.
No, we'll do remediation. Yippee skippy.
I knew somebody knocked.
Oh, I didn't never hear him.
I heard it. I said, I think
Jody
someone's at
looked
the door.
over there, so I didn't know what she was doing.
No, I said, I
Oh!
think someone's at the door.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Didn't mean to bother.
No, you're good. You're good. Hang that up in a little bit.
Is that the basketball one?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.